Well, summer is truly underway for those of us in the Northern Hemisphere. Judging from a recent poll I put up on the channel, the vast majority of you are getting a decent amount of painting done, which is excellent news. As I alluded to in the last channel update a couple of months back, summer is my busy period with my real life career, so my hobby and video editing times are much more limited than what they are in the colder months. Hence why this hobby log covers the progress Jester and I made with our backlog in both June and July. Around the start of summer, I started seeing posts on Reddit about people trying out the new slap chop method of painting, which got me curious. What exactly is slap chop? I did a bit of digging and found out that slap chop is simply an old painting technique which was called underpainting back in the day. Uncle Atom over at Tabletop Minions did a video on the topic almost 9 years ago, and the technique wasn't exactly new back then either. Long story short, it's a very quick and easy method to get realistic looking highlights without resorting to the painstaking process of edge highlighting a model. You start off by spraying a model black, and then in a similar manner but slightly different to zenithal highlighting, you dry brush the entire model grey, leaving black in the recesses, followed by a dry brush of white on the top edges of the model. This way you are pre-highlighting the model before you put on any paints. This technique is seeing a resurgence because, back in the day, you had to glaze very thin layers of paint in order to allow the zenithal-esque undercoat to affect the coloured layers you were putting on top. Games Workshop's excellent contrast paints, however, have made this process much easier, as you can almost just slap on a single layer of paint over the zenithal prime and you're effectively done. This is actually how I paint my Fallout Wasteland Warfare miniatures, so I thought I'd paint a couple of models using the underpainting technique for this month's hobby log. First up, we have two Kosargi nightguard models from Curse City. These undead ogres serve as the elite henchmen, if such a term can be used for brain-dead zombies, of Radukar the Wolf. Painting these two models only took a couple of hours. I started with a zenithal prime and then painted the entire model with contrast paints, except for the metallic areas, which were painted with regular layer paints. The contrast paints were applied with a single coat, thinned down where needed. Once the contrast paint had dried, I went a step further by quickly dry brushing edge highlights with layer paint, which is a step beyond normal slap chop, but I find helps put a nice finishing touch on the models. With that, I based the models and declared them finish. I painted Gorslav the Graveskeeper using the same method. Not my best work, but I'm happy with the result, and he was finished so quickly compared to how long it usually takes me to finish a miniature that it almost felt like cheating. Next we have Torgilius the Chamberlain, the mad scholar in service to Radukar the Wolf. I did start painting this model using the underpainting technique, but I wasn't 100% convinced that it was looking the way I wanted, so I decided to repaint him using traditional base and layer paints. The end result is something I'm pleased with, so I decided to stick with the traditional method of painting the final two models I had remaining in the Curse City box set. The first of those two models was Dagnai Holdenstock, the Dwarf Merchant, which was a fun model to paint, and technically my first Caradron Overlord. Admittedly, I'm not a huge fan of the lore of Age of Sigmar, despite several serious attempts to try and get into it and find something to like, but there's something about steampunk skyship pirate dwarfs which just works for me and I find really cool. Sticking with the layer paints, I then painted up Glario Van Elton III, dashing noble rogue, who is probably my favourite miniature in the entire Curse City box set, although there are several others which could contend for top spot. In addition to using him in Curse City, I absolutely plan on using this model as a rogue trader in the different 40k games I play. He fits that setting perfectly, and doesn't need any conversion work to 40k him up some. With the Curse City box set complete, it was time to crack on and finish my Nachman Fronteras terrain box set so I could start planning some Kill Team Morok themed games. I started by painting the comms antenna relay. I'm not sure what it is, but I struggle mentally when it comes to painting terrain. Don't get me wrong, I think having a decent terrain collection actually helps your games feel more fun and varied, even more so than having multiple armies. But painting terrain for some reason to me just feels like I'm plucking teeth. Still, while a bit tedious, the weathering process is fun as you don't need to be too neat with it, and I feel really helps make the terrain look good. With that done, I painted up the landing pad in pretty much the same way. It's awkward to film on a turntable, so here's a static photo of it. I'm a bit curious as to how it interacts exactly with the kill team rules, because either I'm missing something or the rules are not as explicit as they need to be. One of the missions involves securing the fuel tanks on the side of the landing pad and scoring points for each one. That's great, but it doesn't say how many fuel tanks there are, and you could argue that each side has 2 fuel tanks or that each side has 4. Let me know what you think in the comments. I also painted up one of the hab bunkers. At this point, Jester could tell I was starting the flag, so she helps me out by painting up the other hab bunker before then tackling the Auspex Shrine. With these models finished, the entire Nakton Fronteras terrain box set was complete. Despite having a busy schedule as well, Jester was also able to paint up some regular miniatures. As our regular viewers will know, we've been producing Kill Team content for a little while now, but despite obviously seeing that we own the Octarius box set, the Death Core of Krieg have yet to feature, so here they are. Specifically, here are the 8 extra models Jester painted to accompany the original 10 that she actually painted well before we started these hobby logs. Her Krieg team was the first kill team she made before we had even played the game, so by the time the initial 10 models were finished, we quickly realised they were simply not optimised to the point where it was a little pointless playing with them. That's a bit of a psychological blow, so even though we bought the extra models fairly quickly, they sat on the back burner for a long time. The team is pretty much ready to roll now, and we're looking forward to seeing them in action. Jester then got to work on a brand new kill team that we're planning on introducing to the channel for some special projects later on. Here's the first batch of the new team, Pink Horrors of Tzeentch. They come in a box of 10 and the first 8 have been completed. Jester used these models to test out the new contrast paint, Doomfire Magenta, which he used as a base coat, and the new White Scar Primer that was released alongside the new contrast paints. It feels strange to say this, but the new White Spray Primer from Games Workshop is legitimately a fantastic product. The finish is very smooth and bright, with none of the speckling that the old Corax White Spray used to suffer from. Jester's been generally enjoying painting these, and I foresee a purchase of Blue Horrors in the future. So when all is said and done, what was our progress for the months of June and July? Despite being busy, we managed to get a fair bit out, although a lot of our progress was slowed down by being larger terrain pieces which take much more time than a single miniature. But, as Gimli says,
"That still only counts as one!"
With everything included, I count our progress at 29 finished models. But how much did we buy? Well, Jester bought the 10 pink horrors that were just shown, and as part of the new release of the Chaos Codex, I also bought a squad of 5 Chaos Terminators as the new Codex completely invalidates my current unit. I was also finally able to track down a white whale of mine.
Lower away!
I'm sure everyone has a white whale miniature, a model which you really want but missed out on the opportunity to purchase before it went out of production. I've got a few, one of which was this fella here, Inquisitor Gideon Law, a super limited release circa 2007 which came out when I was in my final year of university and too broke to buy. I got lucky several years ago and found an unpainted model for sale in the used section of my local gaming store and snapped him right up. This month I was able to seize another white whale of mine and win an eBay auction for a model that I've been searching for years. And here it is, the Games Day 2012 exclusive miniature based on the Blood Angels captain on the cover art of the 2nd edition 40k box set, which was my first foray into Warhammer, about 2 or 3 months before 3rd edition was released. Alas, Games Day 2012 was during the 6-year period I took off from the hobby to pursue other ventures, so I was unaware of the release at the time. I'm very happy to finally have a copy. I also bought a box set of 10 other miniatures, but that's for a project I'm not quite ready to reveal just yet. That means our total purchase count for the months of June and July is 26 miniatures, which puts us 3 ahead. Not too bad, especially considering the amount of terrain we painted, although I'm not sure how long we'll be able to stay ahead for. We've managed to get a handle of our backlog partly by making a conscious decision to not start playing the Horus Heresy, despite really wanting to, at least not yet. We do have the next season of Kill Team coming out though, and that is going to include a lot of terrain as well as miniatures, so I better crack on. That's it for this video. We hope you enjoyed seeing what we've been up to recently with the hobby. Let us know in the comments what you've been working on and whether you're on the hunt for any personal white whale miniatures or not. We'll see you all in the next video.